Hi students, welcome to SPSVERSITY. Today we are going to discuss about neural control and coordination. So what is this neural control and coordination? What it consists of and what it is made up of? So here when you take human neural system, human neural system is divided into central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. So what this central nervous system consists of? It consists of brain and spinal cord. So in brain and spinal cord, these are the places where processing and control will take place. So in central nervous system, the information processing and the control occurs in central nervous system. When it comes to peripheral nervous system, what it is made up of? It comprises of nerves of the body like cranial nerves which come from brain. So there are 12 pairs. There are 12 pairs of nerves which arise from the brain. They are called cranial nerves. And spinal nerves which arise from spinal cord. They are of 33 pairs. So cranial nerves and spinal nerves include peripheral nervous system. Brain and spinal cord include the central nervous system. Okay. Again, when you come to the peripheral nervous system, in this the cranial and spinal nerves are of again two types. That is efferent fibers which transmit impulses from tissues to the CNS. That is, towards the CNS, the information is sent towards the CNS. Efferent, which transmit away from CNS, that is from CNS to tissues, which is called efferent fibers. So efferent from CNS to tissues, efferent from tissue, that is efferent from tissues to CN, efferent from CNS to tissues. This PNS is divided into two divisions, that is somatic neural system and autonomic neural system. In autonomic, there are again sympathetic and parasympathetic. So in PNS, there are again two subdivisions. One is somatic, another one is autonomic. In autonomic, there are sympathetic and parasympathetic. What somatic will do? It will relay impulses from central nervous system to skeletal muscles. That is the muscles which are associated with bones. Skeletal muscles means the muscles which are associated with bones. The autonomic nervous system will relay impulses to involuntary organs and smooth muscles of the body. So involuntary organs means heart, lungs, these all are involuntary, which are not under our will. So they will not work under your will. So they are involuntary. Whereas skeletal muscles are voluntary. That is the impulses from central nervous system to voluntary muscles through somatic. Through involuntary, that is the impulses from CNS to involuntary through autonomic neural system. So PNS is divided into that is somatic neural system and autonomic neural system. Okay. So we have studied about that is what is central nervous system, what is peripheral nervous system, these are. Okay. So what is this nervous system is made up of? So the nervous system is made up of neurons. So the structural and functional unit of nervous system is neurons or a nerve cell. It is also called a nerve cell. So whatever it is, that is the nervous system is made up of the nerves. The basic structural and functional unit of nervous system is neuron. So a neuron is composed of three major parts. So one is cell body, dendrites, axon. So in this picture, so this is cell body. It is also called soma, which has nucleus in the center. And surrounding to this cell body, there are branches. These are called dendrites. The fine branches are called dendrites. And from the cell body, elongated structure arises, which is called axon. So this axon is covered by a sheath, that is myelin sheath. And axon ends with a, that is axon terminal. So here in neuron, the parts are cell body. Inside the cell body, nucleus, and from the cell body, many fine branches arises. They are called dendrites, and the elongated branch is called axon, which is covered by a myelin sheath and ends with axon terminal. So these are the parts of a neuron. So the cell body or soma. The cell body or soma, so contains cytoplasm, that is nucleus is surrounded by cytoplasm, the typical cell organelles. Along with cell organelles in the cytoplasm of this, there are granular bodies. They are called Nisser's granules. And the short fibers which arise from the cell body, they are called dendrites. And the long fiber-like structure which comes from the soma, the cell body, is axon. So each branch ends with a synaptic node. So these are the different parts which are present in a neuron. Okay. So in neuron there are basically three parts. So one is cell body, dendrites, and axon. So based on number of axons and dendrites, there are three types of neurons, like multipolar, bipolar, unipolar. Multi means one axon, several dendrites. That is, the ratio of axon and dendrites is 1:infinity. In bipolar, that is one axon and one dendrite. So the ratio of axons to dendrites is 1:1. Whereas when you come to unipolar, only axon is present, there is no dendrite. The ratio is 1:0, which are found in embryonic stage. So multipolar are found in cerebral cortex, bipolar are found in retina or fine. So these are the three types of neurons. So unipolar, bipolar, multipolar. So in this picture you can see bipolar. So there is one axon and there is one dendron. Okay, there is one dendrite. And here if you see this, unipolar, only axon is present, there is no dendrite. And when you come to multipolar, so there are many dendrites and as well as only one axon. So in all these types of neurons, so here axon is only one, axon is common. That is, axon is 1, the number is 1. Whereas the dendrites number will vary from neuron to neuron, like many, 1, okay, and 0. Many in multipolar, 1 in bipolar, 0 in unipolar. So unipolar are found in embryonic stage, whereas bipolar are found in retinophyte. Multipolar are found in cerebral cortex. So these are different types of neurons seen in our body. Okay. And when you come to axons, here in axons, there are again two types of axons. So one is myelinated and another one is non-myelinated. So when you take myelinated, so myelinated means which is covered by myelin sheath. It is enveloped with squamous cells which is forms a myelin sheath around that. So the gaps between the adjacent myelin sheath, it is called nodes of Ranvier. So which is found in spinal and cranial nerves. Non-myelinated, which is enclosed by a squamous cell but does not form a myelin sheath around axon, which is found in autonomous and somatic neural system. So in non-myelinated, there is no myelin sheath, only squamous cells are present. Whereas in myelinated, squamous cells as well as myelin sheath both are present, which are found in the cranial nerves and spinal nerves, and the gaps are called nodes of Ranvier. So these are types of axons. So here you can see the picture of myelinator neurofiber, where the gap is called nodes of Ranvier, which is covered by a sheath, myelin sheath, and the cells are called squamous cells. In unmyelinated sheath, the axon is not covered by myelin sheath, only squamous cells are present. It is unmyelinated axon which is found in the somatic and autonomic neural system. So it is found in somatic and autonomic neural system. Whereas when you come to this myelinator nerve fiber, which is found in cranial and spinal nerves. So cranial and spinal nerves are made up of the myelinated axon, the neuron with myelinated axon. Okay. So what these neurons will do? What is the function of neurons? What they will do? So they will conduct nerve impulse. How this nerve impulse is generated? How it is conducted? So we'll look into the process, how this process will be proceeding, and how generation of nerve impulse and how conduction of nerve impulse takes place. So the stage initially where the resting phase, where it is not conducting an impulse. It is called the resting phase. So the axonal membrane is polarized. Okay. So when there is no conduction of impulse, where the axonal membrane is polarized, it is called resting potential or polarized membrane. At the resting potential, there is during resting potential, so the axoplasm inside the axon, that is, if you take the axoplasm, this is axon, so the membrane of axon. This is axoplasm inside the fluid which is present in the axon membrane. It is called axoplasm. Okay. So inside the axoplasm there will be high concentration of potassium. And fluid outside the axon, that is outside here, there will be high concentration of sodium, that is Na+. So during resting potential, there is a difference in the concentration of potassium and sodium ions. Here, if you take, that is inner surface which is rich in the potassium and negatively charged proteins. Outer surface is rich in potassium, sodium ions. That is, outside is the membrane is positively charged and inside it is negatively charged. So this difference, this electric potential difference across the plasma membrane is called resting potential. That means when the nerve is not conducting any impulse, so there is a difference in concentration on the plasma membrane of axon. That is, outside it is positively charged, inside it is negatively charged. So this is called the resting potential. So here you can see, that is, in the picture there is, you can see that is, inside there is high potassium ions. Outside it is rich in sodium ions. So outside it is positively charged, inside it is negatively charged. So which is called resting potential or a polarized membrane. And this next B part, that is excited axon. Excited axon means when there is a movement of impulse, when there is a conduction of impulse. The charge becomes quite opposite. Outside it is negatively charged and inside it is positively charged. Quite opposite to resting potential. It is called depolarized. So wherever the nerve impulse is conducted, there we can see depolarization. As in when the nerve impulse moves to the next part of the axon, again it comes to normal. That is, outside it is positive, inside it is negative. It is called repolarized. So that means if you take resting potential, which is a polarized state, action potential during the conduction of nerve impulse, it is depolarized. As in when the nerve impulse is transmitted, that is, once it crosses this point, it is repolarized. So polarized, depolarized and repolarized. Repolarized means again coming to the normal state, that is resting potential, it is called repolarized. Okay. So what happens during the conduction of nerve impulse? So the state, the potential where nerve impulse conduction takes place, it is called action potential. Okay. When a nerve fiber is stimulated. So when a nerve fiber is stimulated, what happens is the permeability of membrane to Na plus greatly increases. That is, during action potential, the Na plus ions permeability will increase. That is, rapid influx of sodium ions. Hence, what happens? The polarity of the membrane is reversed. That is, inside it becomes positive, outside it becomes negative, which is quite opposed to polarized. So this electric potential difference across the plasma membrane during action potential, this difference is called action potential. So which in fact it is called nerve impulse. And this depolarization is very rapid. So it takes place very fast. Within fraction of seconds we can see the generation of, that is, the conduction of nerve impulse. As and when the nerve impulse has moved, followed by increase in permeability of potassium ions, K+. That is, in repolarized state, what happens is increase in the permeability of potassium. So here it becomes negatively charged, again it comes to the positive charge. So which is called repolarization. So regain of resting potential takes place due to action of sodium potassium ATPase enzyme. So here which will transport 3 Na plus ions inside and 2 K plus ions inside with the expense of 1 ATP. So 3 Na plus ions are sent out and 2 Na plus, that is, for every 3 sodium ions, 2 potassium ions are sent in. And the resting potential will be 70 millivolts. So here for transport of this, it is 1 ATP is required. That is, for every 3 sodium ions coming out of this outside and 2 potassium ions coming into this, it requires consumption of 1 ATP. And the resting potential will be, voltage will be 70 millivolts. So which is called resting potential. Okay. Now we have seen about the polarized state, depolarized state and repolarized state. Okay. So as and when the nerve impulse passes through the axon, there we can see the movement of ions, like sodium and potassium. Okay. But how transmission takes place in the gap, that is synapse. Synapse means the functional gap between 2 neurons. So synapse means the functional gap between 2 neurons is called synapse. Okay, there is a gap. So this, how the transmission takes place at this gap. How it takes place. What is the process? So here when you take a synapse, there are parts like presynaptic neuron, postsynaptic neuron. So presynaptic neuron means this is pre. Postsynaptic, it is postsynaptic neuron. This is presynaptic neuron. And the gap which may be gap, this is called synaptic cleft. And this entire is called synapse. So there are basically 2 types of synapse. So one is electric synapse, where the pre and postsynaptic membranes are very close proximity without any synaptic cleft. So in electric synapse, there is no synaptic cleft is absent, only pre and post synaptic. That means here the conduction takes place through electric potential. And when you come to chemical synapse, there is the pre and post synaptic are separated by a space, that is fluid filled space, that is called synaptic cleft. So in chemical synapse, there is an synaptic cleft, whereas in electric synapse there is no synaptic cleft. So how it will take place, we'll see. Okay. So here when you come to this conduction of impulse in chemical synapse, how it takes place? Okay, electric synapse through repolarization, repolarization, again it's common. But what happens in chemical synapse? How it will transmit? So the axon terminal contains vesicles which are filled with chemicals. That is, if we take the presynaptic membrane, inside this presynaptic neuron there are structures, these are called vesicles. Inside vesicles there are chemicals, they are called neurotransmitters. Okay. So as and when the action potential arises, so it will stimulate the synaptic vesicles to move towards the presynaptic membrane. And they will fuse with this membrane, the presynaptic membrane, and releases the neurotransmitters, that is the liquid present in the vesicles, into synaptic cleft. Okay. This is the synaptic cleft into which the neurotransmitters are released. And the neuron which is present on the other end of the synaptic cleft, it is postsynaptic neuron, so which has receptors. So as and when the neurotransmitters binds with receptors, so this activation of receptors, it will make permeability of Na plus and generate, that is action potential is generated. So this action potential which is generated, it may be sometimes, it may be excitatory or it may be inhibitory, depending upon the nature of neurotransmitter. So this is how we can see the conduction of impulse through chemical synapse. So the conduction of impulse this is how it takes place through the chemical synapse. Okay, so here you can see there is the movement of the impulse through, that is the chemical synapse. So here you can see clearly the structure of the synaptic transmission. So this is called postsynaptic neuron. This is presynaptic neuron, and this is called presynaptic membrane. So inside presynaptic neuron there are vesicles which are filled with neurotransmitters. So as and when the action potential reaches to this point, what happens is these vesicles bind to the presynaptic membrane, so which will release the neurotransmitters into the synaptic cleft. So this neurotransmitters will bind with the receptors which are present on the postsynaptic membrane. So by this it will generate a action potential here. So this action potential, it may be either excitatory, which will stimulate, or which may be inhibitory also. Both may be there depending upon the type of neurotransmitter, depending upon the nature of neurotransmitter. So this is how we can see the transmission of nerve impulse through nervous system, that is through neurons, through chemical synapse. Follow us SPSVERSITY on social media. Okay, till now we have discussed about the structure of neuron, how the synaptic transmission takes place, the transmission of nerve impulse takes place. So now we are going to discuss about central nervous system. Okay. So central nervous system is made up of, that is basically it is made up of brain and spinal cord. So it is made up of brain and spinal cord. Okay. So brain is a central control and command system in the neural coordination. It plays an important role. And brain is protected by a bony cage that is called skull. The bony cage which covers the brain, it is called skull. And below the skull, that is, the brain is covered by protective layers. They are called cranial meninges. So the protective layers are called cranial meninges. There are three meninges. Outer durometer, middle arachnoid, and inner pyometer. So durometer, arachnoid, pyometer. Okay. And when you come to the parts of the brain, so human brain is divided into three major parts: forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. So in human brain there are three parts: forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. In forebrain again there are three subparts: cerebrum, thalamus, hypothalamus. In hindbrain there are parts like pons, cerebellum, and medulla oblongata. So we'll study each and every part in detail. So here you can see. So cerebrum, this all comes under the forebrain. Pons, cerebellum, medulla comes under hindbrain. Thalamus, cerebrum, cerebral cortex, these all will come under forebrain. So forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. Come to forebrain. In forebrain there are different parts: cerebrum, thalamus, hypothalamus. Like this. In this, cerebrum is the major part. And cerebrum is divided into two parts, that is by fissure, which divides the cerebrum into two equal cerebral hemispheres. They are called cerebral hemispheres. And these cerebral hemispheres are connected by tract of nerve fiber, that is called corpus callosum. And the cerebral hemisphere shows lot of foldings, that is prominent foldings. And the cerebral cortex is referred as gray matter. The cerebral cortex has different areas like motor area, sensory area, association area. Motor area means which sends information to the body. Sensory means which receives information from the body. Association area neither sends nor which processing takes place, that is coordinates information. Here the coordinates information means the processing of information takes place in the association area. So where we can see the processing of information. So in cerebral cortex there are different areas which are associated with different functions. Like you can see primary motor cortex, motor area, somatosensory, which is related to the skeletal muscle, association cortex, visual association area, which is related to vision, visual cortex, vernix area. Next, auditory association area, which is related to hearing, auditory cortex, speech centered, prefrontal cortex. Like, depending upon the functions, there are different areas in cerebral cortex, like speech, auditory, visual, association, somatosensory, motor. These all which are present in the cerebral cortex, which is mostly related to the speech, listening, hearing, talking, the memory. These all are related to cerebral cortex. So interior of the brain is called white matter. The cerebral cortex which has gray matter, due to myelin sheath of tract of nerve fibers. So this cerebrum wraps around the structure that is thalamus, which is a major center for sensory and motor signaling. And the base of thalamus is called hypothalamus. So this hypothalamus has a lot of importance as well as functions. Like it controls body temperature, urge for eating and drinking. Neurosensory cells secrete different hormones like body temperature, eating and drinking, hormonal secretion. These are all related to hypothalamus. And when you go into the deep of this cerebral hemisphere, there is a deep structures associated with it. They are called amygdala, hippocampus. These all parts includes limbic system. Okay. So this limbic system, which is related to long-term memory and short-term memory. And hypothalamus, it is also involved in various regulations of sexual behavior, expression of emotional reactions like excitement, pleasure, fear, motivation. These all are related to the hypothalamus. So till now we have discussed about midbrain. In midbrain we have discussed about cerebrum, thalamus, hypothalamus. Now come to midbrain, which is located between the thalamus and pons of the hindbrain. Thalamus belongs to forebrain. So a canal is there which passes through this midbrain, that is cerebral aqueduct. And midbrain consists of 4 swellings. They are called corpora quadragemina. So the 4 swellings are called corpora quadragemina. Okay. So here, this is midbrain. And come to hindbrain. So hindbrain has, that is, it consists of different parts like pons, cerebellum, and medulla oblongata. So this cerebellum and medulla oblongata. So pons consist of fiber tracts which connect different parts of the brain. So cerebellum has convoluted surface which plays an important role in balancing of the body during movement. So cerebellum plays an important role in balance. Medulla oblongata, which is continuous like a spinal, which continues as a spinal cord. And medulla oblongata, which has controls lot of involuntary actions, that is, which are not under our will, like respiration controlling center, cardiovascular reflexes, gastric secretion, these all are under this control. So middle oblongata controls or involuntary reflexes like respiratory control center, cardio control center, gastric secretion, these all which are present. So till now we have discussed about different parts of the brain: forebrain, midbrain, hindbrain. In forebrain we have discussed about the cerebrum, the thalamus, the hypothalamus. In midbrain we have discussed about quadrigen. In hindbrain we discussed about pons, cerebellum, the medulla oblongata and their functions. Come to spinal cord, which is a part of central nervous system. Along with brain, spinal cord also comes under the what we call the central nervous system, which is protected by vertebral column. So it is protected by vertebral column as well as meninges. It helps in reflex actions. Reflex means sudden actions. And it helps in exchange of information between body and brain. So the nerves which arise from spinal cord, they are called spinal nerves, and the nerves which arise from brain, they are called cranial nerves. Spinal nerves are 33 pairs and the cranial nerves are of 12 pairs. So follow us SPSVERSITY on social media. That's all for today's session. We'll meet in the next session and discuss reflex action, the eye and the ear. Thank you all. Follow us on social media, SPSVERSITY.